Right, a little bit of an update on where we're doing, what we're doing and why we're doing it. As you can see here, lots of bits, front wheel bits from the BSA B40. Now what we've had a bit of an issue with the front brake, just pulsing, just sort of grabbing, boom, 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 boom. Common enough, I guess. So I've dismantled all, as you can see. Check the drum. There's a few sort of, I don't want to say corrosion, but marks on it. And I've taken it to my cousin's, who's very kindly stuck it on his lathe, trued it all up, and then checked it. Can't see any run out of any consequence. Really, just seems to be perfect, give or take. There is a sort of school of thought, but could it be shoes? Could it be this? Could it be that? But anyway, we're going to sort of experiment with those. The shoes are good. I mean, they've got plenty of meat. Having said that, to worry, 2024, 1965. These shoes are 60 years old, so I'll probably give them a scuff up and go again. So it's only an old bike. Backing plate that's just been taken out and cleaned. Obviously bearings removed. Here's where it gets interesting. One bearing fits nice, the other fits really quite amazingly loose. Falls on and off, I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know that they're supposed to be an interference fit, but they are. There's certainly play there. Anyway, new bearings on order, SKF. They seem, one of them's a little bit grumbly, but nothing catastrophic. This one fits a bit tighter. I think this one that's got the slight grumble in it, and more by accident than intent, I stumbled on a new old stock shaft available. I don't think there's anything wrong with this one. It has, at some point in time, I'm guessing factory times, somebody's put it in a vise and made a little bit of a chewy bit on there. Anyway, there was one available on, I don't know what, Classic British Bikes or something. New old stock, 19 quid. So I thought, well, I'll buy one. At the very least I can use this one as a drift or something. But anyway, so that's where we're at. The SKF bearings are, I think, pre-greased with a sort of protective, more modern bearing. Grade, best grade, or as you order the best grade. As I say, the problem with that one is it's got some sort of side-to-side play. Of course, not saying that the thing's going to suffer too much side to side, but it's definitely there. Anyway, that's that. Spokes have all been taken out and cleaned. What I'm not anxious not to do is to put like stainless steel spokes in it and make it look like I have a favourite saying, shilling on a sweep's arse. I don't know where that saying originated from. I think I picked it up from a friend of mine many years ago. The inference being that a sweep, as in a chimney sweep, would have been black from head to foot, and a shilling was a shiny silver coin. So the saying, which is obviously he probably picked up from the old boys that he worked with, should I say, a shilling on a sweep's arse. In other words, it'll stick out like a beacon of shiny spokes, restored. Not what you want to do with originality. So it'll all be put back to original. The rim has been cleaned up, and I will grab that. Now the rim has some corrosion. The chrome is past its best, but as I said, if you chrome it, it's going to look ridiculously bright. One of the issues, another reason I wanted to take it off really, I suppose, was I was getting some rust water on the tyre. So what I've done is, and it was rusty within here, so obviously took it all down. Didn't get too involved with scoring it or anything, but I treated it with something called, I think it's called Cure Rust, to try and stop the rust. It wasn't massive, it was just in these rolled seams. Obviously water must have over time gotten in through the spokes anyway. And then given it a lick of paint, so when I put all the spokes back, be some protection. I'm not saying it's going to be wonderful, but that was what it was before. As I say, the chrome, I don't know whether I picked that up, but the chrome's marked in a few places. But hey, 60 years old, it's original. Da-da-da. So, that's where we are. It doesn't look so good when it's in the light. The only query I had was the shoes in their original. They're not handed, they're the same part number. Originally, the shoes were like that. So, if we bear in mind that our wheel goes around, and when you apply the brakes, they spread at the bottom. It's not twin leading shoe, single leading shoe, so they spread like that. So note this, and this, having measured it, slightly more wear on this shoe than there is on this shoe. So what I propose to do is pure and simple, migrate that around there so the leading shoe, say the wheel goes this way, so we'll have a slightly different aspect on the shoe maybe. I don't know whether it's going to make any difference whatsoever. The shoes, it's done 7,000 miles, the shoes still got the chamfer on the edges, so they haven't worn noticeably at all really. I'm sure I could put another set of shoes on, but to be honest, it's not a performance bike. As long as it stops without any sort of undue, I should be happy. Once I get it back together, if we still got this bitey grabbing thing, I'm going to be basically trying to deal with it on bike, which may mean putting some abrasive paper, sticking some abrasive paper on the shoes, putting the shoes back in and riding it up the road to try and wear it down. But I have a funny feeling that maybe something to do with the shoes, but anyway, neither here nor there. It's basically just a sort of service job. Spokes, as I say, the spokes are all here in our thingy, and I've been cleaned. To say the chrome is gone, but I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about it all being nice and as it should be. So if I put chrome stainless spokes on, it's going to look rather ridiculous. So remember that saying, it'll look like a shilling on a sweep's arse, which basically means it's going to stand out unduly from the rest of the bike and make it look a bit odd. So these have all had a clean and a dollop of WD-40 type stuff, so they're ready to go back in. No, I'm sort of looking forward to lacing that up. It's going to be an interesting one. I've never done that before. Can't see it's a great problem. This has all been, I say, cleaned, greased that. I put a little bit of copper slip on the offending edges, but yeah, it was dry as a bone, so it was all okay. So that's it. Once we get to lacing the wheel up and putting the bearings in, I might do a little bit more. And obviously, right, I've sped this up because otherwise we'd be here all day on what is relatively simple stuff, which I'm sure anybody competent can do. I laced the wheel up, which is time consuming, and I didn't, all the spokes are loose at this point, so I didn't really go banzai on anything, simply because obviously you want to put it in the hub and sort of check it's all true and in the right place, etc. The bearings and obviously the all the respective caps all fitted nicely. I stuck some grease in there as well. I think you really need grease with these new modern bearings, but you got some anyway. And as
as they say, sort of you're only in there once in this incarnation, as it were, so it'll be somebody else's problem in the future. The spokes are, as I say, the spokes are not shiny, and neither is the chrome. It's all just basically just been cleaned. The hub's had a lick of paint, as you'll see. It looks very sort of sparkling on the bench there, and everything seemed to go fine. The shoes were fine, but the interesting thing is that the sort of combination, I think, the sort of, I'm not saying perfectionist because I'm not a perfectionist, but as I sort of work through it, a little bit of play in the shaft. Yeah, maybe just tooling of the day. A little bit of play in the bearings. Certainly one was a bit grumbly. They certainly fitted quite loose on the shaft. The new bearings on the new shaft, much tighter, much neater, much more up together. And generally, it's just little bits, just little bits of, all of which could have contributed to the problem. I'm not saying I've cured the problem, but certainly if I have the brake binding problem left with me, then I think I've got a good base to work from. One of the interesting things, as I built the brakes up, everything was fine, checked the grease points, etc., etc. That all came together well, put it all together as to the best of my ability, cleaned it again. You just keep on cleaning. Certainly when you're touching brakes and you've had grease on your hands or anything. One of the interesting things is you'll see there's a nut that holds the brake plate on. Now when I took it to part, that nut was loose, and I mean loose, like not off thread, but certainly backed off, which obviously would enable the brake back plate to be a bit loose. And that doesn't fit with a very close tolerance onto the shaft. Anyway, I digress. That's all been put back together, and that nut has been tightened. It's another thing, so that combination of things, a little bit of wear in the bearings, a little bit of wear in the shaft, a little bit, the brake backing plate being loose, all of which would have contributed to the whole thing being a bit wrong, not sorted. Obviously these things shake to bits in no time flat. I suppose that was the British bike industry, wasn't it? These things were subject to a certain amount of maintenance, of course. The other thing is the shoes. I've spun the shoes around. One shoe was very, very, I can't say 1,000 millimetre, not even a millimetre. One shoe was just noticeably a little bit more worn than the other shoe. Fine. Sorted that, swapped them around, changed the, what I call the aspect of the shoes. And I can't see anything written anywhere that tells me that you can't do that. So it'll be an experiment to see how that works out. And all in all, I was quite happy with myself at the end of the day. The wheel itself now is all built up and back on the bike. There's a backing plate which is a bit of a faff to get on. It's literally just a tin hubcap, really. That in itself was easy enough to plonk on, but you need to burr over the edges, and you want to do that neatly, which took a bit of fiddling. But I got that done and happy with that. So everything is feeling very promising at the moment. As I say, the objective now, next job, is to tighten all the spokes, check it's true, check it's all sort of running nicely. It's certainly, the hub and the wheel spins beautifully, as you would expect, having all been put back together. So I'm pleased with that. Truing the spokes is going to be a little bit of a adventure, because I can see, I remember days of push bikes, that was like, oh, flipping heck. But it seems to be running true and straight, although it's a bit up and down, but As I say, the spokes are broadly loose at this point in time, so I'm not going to worry too much until I get out there and sit on a stool and just go around them and true them up. I was going to change the tyre for a more period looking tyre. Sort of looked and tyre's a tyre. It's a good tyre, albeit of a vintage. The tyres are 2007, so you don't want to go on too many wet adventures for obvious reasons. But there's no perishing, there's no cracking, and I've just checked the tyre over as best I can. So I'll probably reuse that tyre. Not going to get too angsty about the correct tyre. But once I've got it all back together, then I'll be in a position to check and try and see what difference we've made, if any. But as I say, if it's not made any difference, I know I've cured. I know I've addressed a problem. And the rim itself, there's a couple of little holes in the actual rolled section of the rims, 4 to each side. So whilst the outside has been treated and given a lick of paint, I've also given that a shot of WD-40 into those 2 little holes. They're tiny little holes, just about the size of a WD-40 spout. So they've got a squirt of that in there, and hopefully they won't deposit all over the tyre when I do get it done, but I'll be watching it anyway. So that's the next job, lace the wheel, and that's going to be time consuming, so I probably won't bother filming that because that's just going round again, check it, tweak it, adjust it, and then we'll be in a position to road test it. So at this point I think we're ready for the lacing and hopefully the final leg. So I'll catch up with you when we're at that point. Well, there you have it. The little BSA is ready for road test. Just kick that shut. I think it certainly feels like there's no binding of the brakes, where there used to be a noticeable, almost like half a rotation and grab and then nothing. It certainly doesn't feel like that now. So road test next. It's a shame I didn't get it done a day earlier, because it's been an absolutely beautiful day today, and the weather, as anybody would tell you, this September 2024 has been horrific. Messy, rain, wind, and I think it's going to turn back to it next week, so we'll get it road tested before then, but I think that's a good job, well done. So if I can list the issues that I found that I believe may have been relevant. Shoes ran the wrong way, that's a maybe. Bearings worn. They were worn, not catastrophic, but there's some shaft not fitting the shaft nicely. The brake plate itself was dramatically loose. That's got to be an important factor. What else have we addressed? The shaft, the bearings, that's about it. The shaft and the bearings and the brake plate, the brake plate was slightly distorted, which you may have seen me at some point whacking it with a rubber mallet. I don't recommend that, because obviously, that may have been have contributed. All these little things I think were contributors rather than one major bearing failure or shaft failure or brake failure or whatever. Time will tell. I'm not totally convinced. We'll have to road test it and see, but until that time we'll consider that to be a job, and it's now just sitting there ready to road test, and it hasn't been run for a few weeks, so hopefully if we get some weather over the weekend, I'd like to give them all a run, and I'd like to put some miles on the Triumph, really, just maybe take it down the seaside, but that's going to be it's only about 150 mile round trip, but get a good run. So that's it for now. We'll can that, and hopefully we've done something, and as Jeremy Clarkson would say, I've done a thing.
Hopefully it's a fix. Bye for now.